Welcome and good evening to Adventures in DeFi Kingdoms. This is Raph streaming to you live high above Alvarorin, ADFK land. Neindorf, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. I have my brain is swimming with so many different things to talk about tonight. Really excited to get into it. Why don't you just kick us off with question of the day?
Yeah. We're listening to a little shout out to the Bogside crew. Listened to them last night. A little pet conversation came up, and it kind of makes me think that we've talked about this in the past, but really, is it the time to be buying jobbers or jobber helpers? What do you think?
That's such a great question. I think it's so I have not done the financial analysis on this, which I guess it's not really that hard to do. Like you shared some notes with me, so I kind of know where your head's at. So maybe I'll just speak to it kind of personally with the direction that I've been going. Usually when there are new releases, you see prices boosted for a period of time, and then you see them go down after that. I have a feeling that we'll probably see a slight boost in pet prices, and then they'll come down. I think if you were to say like a year from now, do mythic pets cost the same that they cost now? I would say, almost certainly not. And so I've actually sold off my mythic pets to feed my summoning habits, which I think I've talked about on a couple other podcasts. So, how about you?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of tough, listening to their stream. It makes a lot of sense. It's like, well, we want to get these boosts for our heroes, so you're going to want to have a pet for any decent hero, and that's great. But I was watching my pet alerts kind of roll in. I've kind of put a lot of pet alerts out there that are just like everything, because turns out there's not a lot of them being listed, and so I'm trying to kind of get a read on the market. I hadn't paid close attention to it in the past, but I'm trying to learn that market, and what I'm noticing is the floor price for pets is not all that dissimilar in a sense than heroes. And if these pets are going to require food, which is materials, in order to be applied to a hero, and they're only going to give, like, I don't know, maybe a 20% bonus to a hero, if the cost is similar, why am I not just buying more heroes? I, I get for combat, you're going to need a combat pet, but like far as the profession bonuses go, maybe even the crafting bonuses remains to be seen a little bit. Um, I'm all of a sudden of the mind that I don't know that I need a lot of pets or any really. I might just go out and buy a bunch of heroes instead. What do you think?
I don't think that's a bad idea, and I was kind of sticking my head in the sand when it came to my hero count, as I just talked to you about before. Stream, I'm
Yeah.
almost at 300 now, which is the highest I've ever been. And I can't believe I'm there. And so like, there's I guess, like the phrase, the terminology. There's no bad hero. I suppose if you put them to work, and that's a lot of what we want to talk about tonight is the economy and where do we see heroes going in the future. I think that hero values are probably at a low, but we'll see. And so this analysis might only work when hero values are as low as they are. Otherwise, you're better off having a pet.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, you can get a common pet for like teens, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get a hero for that unless it's an accident. But that's it. Just I think they're going to have to be the DFK team's going to have to be really careful on the percentages of boosts they give you relative to the amount of items it costs you, or it's going to be a non-factor. I mean, these items are. I know that we need a sync for items, but if the sync costs more than the bonus from the sync, no one will do it. It's a really tough balancing act, and I'm sure they'll manage it. They're good at balancing tokenomics and things like that. But I would love to see the numbers.
Yeah, and it's a complex thing as we'll get into in a little bit. Well, any other questions that you have or things you want to talk about from the question of the day, talking about heroes or pets?
Well, it's given that pets are on the mind, I mean, maybe I could move into a pet-oriented dev dive, perhaps.
Let's do that.
So yeah, relative to this conversation, again, you can kind of tell that this stemmed from our offline conversations. But way back when we got our roots in the first several episodes of this podcast, remember when you created that the hero, the summoning expected value calculator Excel sheet?
I did, yes.
And that was extremely useful. And it's amazing how much we've all learned and how much more complicated this hero market has grown since then. But for pets, it's actually very simple. There's no genetics at play. It's really just which hatching are you doing, the cheap, or the expensive or the middle one. And then it's the item prices that, as current market value. And then we know the formulas for what your chances on how many stars you're going to get, thanks to Stronghold and DFK Expert. Those charts are out there. So I I'm thinking a near term future you're going to see for our paid users of our site is going to be basically just that a pet expected value page for egg opening.
I love it. And I know based on what we were listening to with the Bogside guys last night, Franz was probably on the winning side of his EV, based on how
No
many
doubt.
mythics he's hatched in the last little while. But
Yep.
I think,
Lucky
and
too.
they were talking about a whale that they were talking to, and I can't remember what his name was or if they even mentioned it. I think there is something to be said for if you play the long run game and hit it a few times, cracking 100 eggs or, summoning 100 heroes and going for the attributes that the market is going to value. Um, can you kind of beat the odds, so to speak? And that's something that I have not revisited hero summoning EV in a long time. I would probably recommend someone go watch like the Brown Gents podcast. I know he does a lot of that, or at least looks at it from a, if you're going to use your Gen Zeros, maximizing them for EV, or if you're going to use your Gen 1 10 out of 10s. Um, what have you been doing for your Gen Zero summons?
Yeah, so I've been striking out. I had three chances for ability mutations and a subclass mutation. I'm 0 for 4 times in a row. So,
Hmm.
uh, that's led me to do though is kind of just dump those heroes and just try to use that minuscule earnings to find other either 9 to 9 Gen 2s or 10 to 10 Gen 1s that basically are just going to make good jobbers. That's kind of the round I'm on now. And it's like I was telling you earlier, it kind of takes the stress off. And it's kind of fun. You just get to pop out another hero, and oh, what's this hero's cool name? And if you get a really, say you get a mutation or you end up with a legendary or something, you're really happy. But if it's a common scholar fisher, you're like, hey, he's gonna find some fish, and you're still happy. So that's kind of where I've been at.
I made my first, and I gotta figure out which pair it is. I made my first triple uh, advanced Gen 1 10 out of 10, and I think I sold it. And
Nice.
I
That's
can't remember what
tough.
I sold it for, but yeah. Or maybe I'm still sitting on it. Oh, yeah, it's still in my wallet. Never mind.
It's hiding in
Have
there
not sold
somewhere.
it. Thinking about selling it. I have yeah, I made a Warrior Thief rare with triple advance. So I have
Plus rare, dude. That's
A2 is
awesome.
A1, passive 1 is A2, and then passive 2 is A4. So yeah, I'm probably going to. I've been buying a lot of E1, E2s, and I'm probably going to flip this guy and then try to put my odds into, already having the E1, E2s. And going from it that way, like I feel like this guy is probably worth a lot, and I don't want to wait around for the right pair.
Yeah, I hear you there. That's gonna, define another 3 out of 3 pair. And if you want to define a class subclass match, that might be months or it's gonna be a long time.
Yeah. All right. What else on the dev dive front that you want to chat about?
I'm trying to think. So I gotta consult my backlog of items here. Um, yeah, oh, that's right. Okay, I remember now. After some of this pet updates, I think gonna kind of get into some view updates on the hero data and some page consolidation. We've kind of got a proliferation of pages, and we kind of want to make a little more sense to it so that we keep it a little more organized. And then the whole query system that we kind of came up with, we're going to try to populate that onto more pages so that um, people aren't getting that application error message, and then also so that there's just not a million little links to follow. It's more kind of a live website than just static page after static page. So some simple things like that. And the big reason I want to do some of that hero reorganization is also so that you can see all of the data for all of the page types. So like if you're looking at your wallet heroes, you should be able to click through. I want to see the visuals. I want to see the stats. I want to see the professions, no different than if you're doing matching or the tavern searcher. So my end goal here would be that no matter what searching mechanism you're doing, be it matching or tavern or wallet, the hero list page on the bottom is the same. And the views across that you can just kind of click through. If you're interested in visuals, you click the visual button and you'll see all of them broken out in more detail. You won't actually necessarily have to click on a hero anymore to bring that page up because all of the data will be there, just split across the different views. So that's kind of where I'm headed there. I think that's those two right there are my current set of blog items here. I think what we should do in the near future, it's been a really long time since we did this too, was put out a vote on some of these other features that I've
Love it.
got listed in my backlog and just kind of see what people want. I kind of got away from that just accidentally. And I think, hopefully here in the next couple weeks or month, we'll put out another one of those votes for our community.
Hear ye, hear ye.
That's right.
Come on, come on. All right, yeah, let's do that. That's exciting, and thank you for the hard work. I mean, it's a couple items, but they sound pretty complicated. So, all
Yeah,
right,
it's all fun too. I love it.
let's go to I wanted to talk about how I view the economy, and so I'm going to bring up a slideshow that I made, and hopefully this presents for our viewers here. All right, I think we got it. Okay, so as I understand the economy, I've been using this terminology for a long time, and I call it a layered economy. And what do I mean by that? And we'll kind of build on this concept, and I'd like your help to flesh this out, and I'd like the listeners' helps to flesh this out too. I want to eventually create a resource that we're going to put into a blog that can be available to new users out there in the game, but also a resource that you can continue to revisit as you play the game and maybe want to understand other aspects of the economy and how you can impact it and what you're working on. So, first, at the lowest tier of the economy, there's things we can find. So things we find, and those are the items that you get on your basic quest. And I'm going to include crystals in that as well because the training quests are a basic quest. So you can get gold, you can get all sorts of the different items. And those end up, you can use them right now into things that we can craft at the alchemist, and you can use those into things that we can craft at the stone carver when he's not being lazy. And so, I almost think of those as two different tiers, and especially since all of the stones require a potion of some sort. And so like the items that you're finding are getting layered in and ultimately allowing you to create a more valuable item, and value will be defined by the marketplace, but presumably once we get a mature game, a more valuable item as you go along. And so there is a certain amount of effort that you can put into actually going through the work of clicking and crafting things, and holding items and selling and buying at the right times that could make a whole position. You know, you could have your foragers that gather the items, and then you could have your crafters that actually craft the items. I see that potentially being like a market position in the future. So this is where what I kind of see as the base economy. Anything you want to add to this, Neindorf?
Uh, I I think the thought that I'm immediately, I totally agree with this. I love this chart actually, and I think the lines that kind of show as almost an inverted filter or a
Yeah.
funnel rather. That's what I meant, a funnel. I think that's how it's going to end up working because typically as you go up the complexity or up the crafted tree and get to more unique or exotic items, it's going to take many more. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, to your point, fishers and foragers, you're going to need a bunch of those. And then you're going to need slightly less crafters and maybe way down the line, maybe there's like some sort of master. You're going to need one of those.
Yeah.
So I think there is that funnel of sorts. And I think that's something that um, is just kind of natural because every hero is not going to be a master crafter. I mean, it's just not in the cards. So I think seeing it that way, I hadn't really considered that before, but yeah, this chart, I like that. Absolutely.
Right, and we don't know really what the gene reroll is going to be, and if crafting is all related to weapons and armor, or if there's a track that's potions related or a track that's stones related. I don't think that there will be one that's stones and potions related. Maybe stones, but probably not potions. It seems like that's kind of unlocked for all heroes um, at this time, but we'll see, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would go to the pet boosts, right? You've got, goldsmithing, armor, like basically look to the pet crafting bonuses. I'm pretty sure that, as far as I know, those will most likely be the bonuses or the crafting system. I don't know if that's probably incomplete because we only have two egg types. So there's
Right.
probably some gaps to fill in there. But it's tricky because with the types of materials that we currently have, like it does, some of them just don't logically boost into certain things. Like if you needed a woodworker, right? Well, I don't know how fish or swift thistle make lumber. Yeah, so like there's some
Yeah.
strange things I think the team from a lore perspective is going to have to figure out for questing.
And I think, once we get into the building items in the future, we'll see if they add to the plethora of things that you can find. I would like them to hold off on that as long as possible. Um,
Totally agree.
I feel like we need to create value out of the things that we can find right now, that tier. So now I have a new chart up now, kind of taking this layered economy and then talking about the concept of a dex in here as well. And I try to write in some notes. Liquidity pools are good right now, and I believe the future of the game. This is a game that's built on a dex. And a question that I have for you is, what pools do you like? Do you like in-game or crypto tokens? And and then I have kind of a comment on what I want from Kingdom Studios once you answer those questions.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know if there's any particular like alpha behind this or math behind it, but my typical what I find myself doing, and I'm not really sure where I came up with this, but if it's items that I know are valuable or more scarce, I tend to pair them with like Jewel because I consider that like the most important game token. And then if it's a lesser important item like Swift Thistle or Tears, I'm more inclined to pair that with say Crystal or Jade, uh, because it's things I'm going to use and consume as a player. I want to consume those items. So then I don't really care if my Swift Thistle converts into Crystal or vice versa. I'm still gonna need to burn both of them to play this game. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't lose, so to speak. Now, if it comes to like regular crystals, say those are pretty rare, I'll probably pair those with Jewel, because again, it's the scarcity thing, right? And I feel like if those happen to skyrocket in value, oh no, I've gained Jewel. Awesome, that's also good. So that's kind of my personal approach. Again, I don't know if that's a smart approach. No, not financial advice. Just kind of what I find myself doing.
Yeah, and I think, as we transition away from the traditional gardens that were incentivized to the decks, I think that we're going to, one, the rewards aren't going to be like the crazy rewards that they were in the past. And so we're going to have to kind of start to wrap
Right.
our mind around, what 2% of transaction fees actually feels like. Um, and then, look into eventually, like, do they create any incentives that go towards the traditional token liquidity pools that end up going to other liquidity pools. That's kind of something that I would like to see maybe the Kingdom Studios consider in the future, because right now some of those burning rewards do go to the standard, but I believe that would require a full vote for any kind of change in the tokenomics like that. I think the most important thing, because again, like, I truly believe that this is a game built on a dex. And so there has to be strength in a dex, which means that you have to have a full and strong liquidity in the dex there. We need to have stability and in the item prices, which means that we have to have long-term use cases for all these
You're
items.
absolutely right. So this, I hadn't thought of it that way. Actually, you sparked an idea. So right now, I would call the gardens. It's like a super dex, right? It's a dex with like a crazy other feature built on top of it, where you basically restake your pair. What's to say they don't do that in the future? There's nothing to say you couldn't incentivize,
Right.
say, Swift Thistle Gold, like you got shown there. I'm just picking one on your
Yeah.
chart. That if you have,
I'm
say, a
using subliminal
landowner,
messaging to get people to buy all the pools that I'm in.
there you go. But what if in the future, what if they had you could deposit, say, Swift Thistle Gold into the bank on your land and provide some in-game value, so you're
Hmm.
not incentivized in the terms of, harvesting power tokens, but you're instead incentivized in some sort of reward on land activity or, guild-based activity.
Yeah.
I think there's a way that they could make the decks prosper in that way too. I mean, the concept that they have with the gardens, they could just spread that. You don't have to use that to emit tokens. You could use that to boost rewards like C Jewel and S Jewel.
Totally agree. I think that we want stability. We want people to be, because the whole idea of a layering mechanism is people have like real life dollars tied up in this, and it has to be worth their while. And so, in a way, it's kind of like a lightly locked version of holding your funds, and it's slightly better than a savings account, but it's only slightly better than a savings account when you believe in the long term success of the game, because if those tokens go down in value, you're kind of going to be the last one left holding the bag. Maybe hero holders, actually, because those will be a lot harder to, they're a lot less liquid. But
Right.
I think that, we want to think about what the potential future incentives are for holding and supporting the decks. And then as I continue down some of the slideshow, I think these ingredients, especially the base ingredients or maybe the sub tier ingredients, are going to continue to become valuable for people that don't want to go through all the effort of, one, getting the jobbers, or two, buying the base ingredients and doing all the transactions. So I think it's a I think there'll be the unsung heroes in the future, people willing to supply the decks.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I do agree that I love your philosophy here too, that the game is based around a deck, so that's probably going to continue on. It, I had a random thought. So when you make a pair, it becomes another token. Is it possible to pair
Tokens on token.
tokens of tokens
Super
to
layer.
like
Yeah.
to make like a derivative
Yeah, right,
market?
right, exactly.
Uh,
That's
gosh,
funny.
I don't even, that makes my head hurt. I don't even know what that would mean.
So then I took the layered market and I threw it into this chart that I have up now. And I have
Ooh,
kind of tiers 0 through 4. And when you think about like what are you creating, 0 is what you find in the wild, 1 is the alchemy items. Tier 2, I'm calling like consumable carving items. And so it's taking your alchemy items, it's also taking your items from the wild, and you're building something, but it's kind of a layer beyond just alchemy. And my prediction someday is that you're actually going to get advanced carving items here too. And so I'm calling this like tier 2.5. And to me, that'll look like actually being able to construct the advanced stones. And so, like, one of the things that I would like to see, and I was thinking about this, and then the Bogside guys talked about it a lot yesterday, and it's certainly it's not a new topic, but are people using a lot of stones right now? And I know you said that you have been. I'd like to kind of get your reasoning behind that. I've been doing it only in select cases, and I think we are in a situation where some of the lesser stones could have eventually become irrelevant if you start having the ability to craft the higher stones. But if you have the lesser stones be a component of trying to craft that regular stone or that greater stone, I think that's a great way to increase, like to maintain value and to keep this tier system, like the reverse funnel, like you're describing, continuing to work in a very healthy way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I would love to see a way where you can build or craft some of those more, exotic items. I think that's going to be interesting. Their tokenomics committee is going to hold that, really close to the chest, because right now that's only something that you can basically win through in-game activity. But I mean, crafting, I mean, is another in-game activity, so it's totally
Mm-hmm.
within the realm of possibility that they would allow you to make those. It could be a really big input cost, I got to assume,
Yeah.
just given how hard they are to find or win right now. But that's definitely doable.
Yeah.
And I think back to the stone question, I think for me, if I'm making, like we said, jobbers, right? A regular stone, or sorry, a lesser stone is a handful of crystal. I mean, with the market the way it is, that's easy to come by. And I'm just kind of playing the long game that extra four stats and those percentage points will stack up, and you're going to end up with a better jobber. And it's always the case too. If you end up hitting a decent hero, you'd be glad. It's kind of, I don't know if there's any return on investment in it, but it feels good to apply those extra boosts. And like I popped out a common priest who was level 1, but with one extra tier boost and a stone, I think had 21 wisdom or something. It was a
Wow.
common hero. So I was like, that's a great start. And
A
maybe he
long,
won't keep
a
up
long
because
career of
he's
jobbing
common.
ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, probably won't keep up because it's a common hero, right? But you never know when that common turns into a mythic or a legendary.
Right. And it feels real bad when you miss and you don't have a stone.
Exactly.
So, all right. I have one image that's out of place here in tier 1. Can you see what it is? Um, where do you think my dog
Uh,
chow picture? Where do you think pet food's gonna land? My thought is that pet food will kind of be at the level of an alchemy item, where it'll take all base items, and that you're actually going to create something that becomes pet food instead of just feeding them bloaters directly.
yeah, I think you're right. That just makes sense to me. I believe you there again. There's going to be to have a true sync for an item. You're going to have to make another item, I would assume.
And it builds
Sure,
an
you could feed
economy. Yeah.
them. Yeah, you could feed them one or five bloaters at a time, but that's just boring. I think they'll go for a tier 1. I think I like that.
Yeah. All right. And then I also have in here, in tier 2, I have an advanced crystal as well. So we talked about stones. I think eventually we'll be able to craft advanced crystals as well.
Oh,
Um,
that would be cool.
okay.
Yeah, because they're hard to find even with training quests. I mean, they're pretty rare.
Right. Right. Okay. So then we get to equipment items, and kind of really my big theory here with the again leading on the funnel is, in my mind, I I want to see and I expect to see that weapons or crafting armor, they are going to require all the items you see beneath them, or a subset of a lot of the items you see beneath them. So it won't be just base items that you find in the wild, like rock root. It's also going to be things like if you want to build a shield, you need to have an endurance stone on it. If you want to build a sword, you need to have a might stone on it. If you want to build a bow, you need to have a dex stone on it or a swiftness stone. And I want to see a world where when you craft it, it's kind of like hatching a pet and you have an opportunity to get a rare item. It's also based on your score of your crafting capabilities. And so, you can get if you put a greater might stone instead of a lesser might stone, you'll get better odds at, one, boosting the total strength of the sword that's going to come out. And then it probably won't impact your rarity odds. That's probably all driven by your crafting score on your hero. So that's kind of my working theory right now on what I hope we see out of equipment.
Wow, if that's the case, the prices of regular and greater items is going to explode. I love that idea though. I hadn't really considered that. And I think the reason I hadn't considered it is because like when you look at these items on your page here, I mean, this is a really good sampling of them. It's like potions and fish. Well, how do I get a sword out of potions and fish?
Right.
Like it's odd to me. And I also, talking with some people offline too, it always kind of confused me how if you go to any other game, why does mining bring gold coins out? Where's the ore? How do
Mm.
I get ore? So I'm I'm a little, I guess, confused in a way on the current quest outputs. I kind of almost feel like they need to be, you know, revamped a little bit, or maybe there will be more in-game items coming out with crafting. But yeah, where's the wood? Where's the leather? Where's the ore that you got to smelt or craft into bars? That's kind of where that's the part where I'm struggling between tiers 2 and 3.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they solve that. I'm sure they will, but I don't see a clear path right now.
There might be a tier point 5 from like profession level 10 quests where you can gather some of those things
Mhm.
out in the wild. I don't know though.
Yeah,
And then eventually, like, yeah, I think tier 4 is a big mystery, right? How do yeah, where's the wood and the ore that goes into building on your land?
yeah,
The gold,
I think you're
obviously.
probably right. It could be a crafting quest. It's instead of you go out for foraging, you craft and you end up your result is lumber. I
Yeah,
mean, or wood. That just totally makes sense to me.
yeah. But I'm hopeful overall that we get to build a total economy that they don't. What I don't want to happen is I don't want like power creep in the way that you end up leaving all these jobbers like totally worthless because really all the in-game economy is only around weapons and you don't need rock root for weapons or tiers for weapons. I think that would be
Sure.
a real disservice to the game.
Well, and the other solution is there is a vendor and I mean the DEX, so
Yeah.
all these items could be converted to gold. So I think gold is one of the main mechanisms that could connect lower profession tier items into crafting items. And that's something to consider too. Gold could be a conduit.
It could. It could. So the next chart that I have is just kind of putting into a visual the realization that we're the economy right now is propped up on it's like a tourism economy right now. People are here for the looks of the game. And they are buying based on speculation. Like I mean, truth be told, there is not a playable game element. It's a dex right now, with the pre-alpha combat that we have access to, but really exciting pre-alpha game that I think the people that are actually listening to this podcast really care about, as do you and I. Um,
Right.
and so I think that it's just what I'm trying to do with this chart is acknowledge that this circular economy where you're trying to trade dollars between, and you could have arrows going every which way too. You don't just have the arrows going in a circle, they're probably going back and forth. In order for this whole economy to work and all these dollars to be traded and transferred and actually to sustain a value, there has to be that dollar sync. And that has to be PvP or PvE. It has to be a fun combat that people are willing to play, or a fun story that people are willing to play, or raids that they're willing to do with their buddies or their guild mates. There has to be something that people are willing to sink their real life money into in order for the rest of the value to stay there long term. And I guess it's my opinion, I suppose, but
No, I
that's
think
what I
you're
believe.
right. And I would I think I would put two more boxes in this chart.
Uh huh.
Um, one, and I mean, you kind of said PvP, then PvE. In my opinion, PvE is both, that might be a net neutral because
Mm,
it's going to create items and you're going to find things, but you're also going to have to expend potions and you're going to have to travel, which is going to cost money. So that one could very well be a neutral. So I would put that off a hero stable below there, but it might, like I said, it might be a net neutral.
mm.
And then the other one I would put would be right in the middle of your box in the bottom, and it would be this marketplace they're talking about. And that's like you said, again, it's another neutral that transitions between all of these,
Love that.
but it's just a marketplace. I think if you have those two additions, I think you have a really good chart here for a very simplistic economy view.
Great ad for kind of, again, trying to make sense of this for new or advanced users that want to dive into the econ side of things.
We should get Stronghold to draw one of those up. His drawing skills are top notch.
Much better than mine. that's that's for sure. All right. Well, thanks for your feedback on that. Let's jump into look at the pet bonuses: armor working, woodworking, 9 beat. To the point. That's Maddie Pesk saying. Um, Kong saying he likes the chart. Vibes wants to make crystals.
I do too. That chart is actually really good. Just to see it in that way, I hadn't. Yeah, you can't just make money, right? People have to spend it for other people to make it. So I really like that. That's a great chart.
Okay. Maddie's telling us that the lore says that the miners immediately smelt the ore into gold.
You mean we don't have to hunt 6 million wild boars?
Yeah. Oh, what a great episode of South Park. All right. Let's talk about the hero glut. I'll give full credit to the Bogside guys talking about this last night. One idea that I wanted to throw at you and throw at our listeners out there, I do think that hero glut is a problem. There's a lot of heroes in the marketplace. They're kind of getting devalued. Like we started with, like it's potentially more cost effective to buy a jobber than it is to buy a job helper, and that probably means the economy there is a little unbalanced. And they threw out the idea, actually community member threw out the idea on the Kingdom Builder site of, what if we increase the summons time for summoning Gen Zero heroes? And I know they talked about this on the Bogside chat last night. I guess as a Gen Zero summons holder, what are your thoughts?
I, 3 days is already fairly long time, I would say. I mean, I know there's thousands of Gen Zeros out there, but I think if you slow it down anymore, the interest will disappear, and it's just
Hmm.
you run the risk of people being completely disinterested and not really wanting to possess Gen Zeros. I think that would be my fear of slowing it down personally.
Okay. At first, I kind of have a few different places I want to go with this. My first thought was like, hell no. I have 7 of these bad boys now. I spent a whole bunch of money on this. Like, that is ridiculous. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought that eventually the economy will reach an equilibrium, right? And so it would probably mean in the long term that your heroes just sell for, like, if you had to wait twice as long, the floor price is probably just twice as high as it otherwise would be. Um, because you would have
Ah,
fewer heroes in the marketplace. So I think a certain kind of equilibrium would be met at some point that would eventually just not change the actual price of it, not change the ROI for Gen Zero holders. It,
I could
but
see
then,
that.
so that was kind of my idea for being okay with it. And then I thought, what's going to happen with travel? And I think that there is a very, very high likelihood that with travel, we we don't see heroes staying inside the capital anymore. And when heroes are not in the capital, they don't get access to all the resources that exist right there in the capital. One of those things being the Inner Grove, the portal to summon more heroes. And I think there's going to be a strong incentive, just like there was for the Perilous Journey, to send your Gen Zeros out with the rest of your party of heroes, whether you're doing PvP tournaments or PvE quests. I think that they have a mechanism in the future that will essentially allow you to drastically reduce the total number of Gen 1 10 out of 10s coming into the marketplace. And once I kind of thought about, wow, travel could be an entire like lever for them to pull to control the hero market, then I thought, nah, leave the summons time alone. The market will just kind of reach equilibrium at some point anyways.
Oh, yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe we talked about this near about the time of ETH Denver, well, two ETH Denvers ago, basically. And I remember we specifically had almost this exact same conversation about travel, and you just keep the people away from the portal. And I think you're exactly right. If a hero's not in town, they're not summoning. And but what that means then is you need to have long duration, like really almost painful durations to get out to the edge of the map. Like it needs to take like real world time so that it's a time commitment. You have to, when you make that choice as a hero owner, you have to think long and hard. Do I want to go participate in that tournament up in the corner?
Yep.
You know, it's going to take my
Go
guy,
to the fairy
you know,
tree.
12 hours to get there. And I think that's reasonable. It should take him 12 hours to get
Yeah.
there.
He won't be
So I think
questing
that's
during that time. He won't be summoning. I think,
correct.
yeah. So I think that I'm really excited about that being a mechanism. It's not here right now, so I think we're stuck with the hero glut for the immediate
Serenity's in the
time.
corner. I love it,
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah, yeah. We're stuck with the hero glut at the for the current state, but I'm really hopeful that it will. There's some self-correcting mechanisms that they can leverage in the future.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And PvE brings opportunities for more hero deaths, I think, too. You want to go try to be the first to unlock, you know, some fog of war place, and your hero has a 5%, it's some percent chance to die. And you go ahead and send a whole bunch of common jobbers at it if you want to try to unlock it. They all have a low probability. They're cheap heroes, but maybe 95% of them die. I mean, it's totally foreseeable.
Worm says, "What was the decrease of summoning rate during PJ?" Um, I
Oh,
think
that's a good
I don't
question.
remember what it was, but most Gen Zeros went.
It
There
was
aren't.
noticeable.
There's not many Gen Zeros that didn't go. Obviously, people could have been summoning outside of that. I mean, also we saw summons drop during that period of time just because of the total price of the coin too.
Right. I would I remember the prices shifting significantly because there was no supply and rental prices went nuts. I don't I mean now I want to go back and almost look. That'd be a question for Zipper. He seems to just remember all that stuff.
Yeah, jumping on to some of the YouTube comments here, going back a little bit. Vibe said, "You guys are mega harsh." Maddie said the same thing last night. I've used the I've used many dexes. DFK is a game. It's so much more than a dex. Um, I don't say it's a gamified dex, but I don't view that as like harsh or insulting. Like I think
No,
it's
me either. And I don't think even if it just was a dex, to some people, maybe myself included, that in and of itself is a game. Like, people play stocks at it. I mean, I get there's real money involved, so maybe it's not a game in that regard, but that's exactly what we're doing here. We're basically making wagers on what future value is going to be. Uh, so I think it's it is when we say it's a dex, I don't think we're saying that negatively, I guess is
Yeah,
what I'm saying. I
yeah.
still find it very enjoyable.
It's still it's a sink for my real life dollars every paycheck. All
There you
right,
go.
not investment advice. Okay. All right. So that's it for the podcast tonight that we had for our regular scheduled content. We are going to do summons night, so jump over into the 80k Discord, into general voice chat, and we're going to be ripping through some big time summons. Hopefully, avoiding the rug factory that we found last week. Uh,
Yeah, that was a
Sir
rough
Worm
one.
told us that we had to do a podcast before every summons night, so that's what we're doing right now.
Oh, you bet.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining, tuning in. Love you guys, and hopefully we get to see you in summons night. Bye.